Welcome to the dog days of NBA summer, where content is thin, but we keep persevering. We are here and we are going to make it through it. And we have content. We have basketball stuff to talk about, which is actually kind of surprising because we didn't think we were going to have that a few days ago.
No, I really want to give thanks to the Chicago Bulls, the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Cleveland Cavaliers for doing the market and trade this week because I texted Justin. This is probably the first time ever where I texted Justin. We're recording this on a Sunday morning, and I texted him Friday afternoon, and I was just like, Justin, what on earth are we going to talk about? Like, I have
Yeah.
nothing. I had done all the scans. I was looking at NBA Reddit. I was going on every basketball blog site you could think about. And yeah, it was bleak. Now, I got to be honest, though, that said, I feel like there ended up being a fair amount of stuff this afternoon. A couple of late
Yeah.
contenders here. Rajon Rondo getting bought out by Memphis. It's looking like going back to the Lakers, and Kevin Love saying that don't buy me out. I want my 60 million. So, a couple of things there as well. So shout out to both of those gentlemen for giving us things to talk about. I'm sure that's exactly what was on their mind when they were making their
I think
decision.
so. I think so. I think Kevin Love was like, those guys at the Drive and Dish NBA podcast, we need to give them something. So I'm just going to be like,
Yeah,
you know what? I want my 60 mil,
I gotta help
So
my fellow Kevin.
exactly, exactly. So the first thing we talk about with the warm up jumper, though, is something you found. NBA Central put out this tweet, and it's via betus.com. And it's essentially the most stressed out fan bases in the NBA.
Hmm.
And I actually asked my buddy this. I said, who do you think it is? And his immediate answer was, has to be 76ers because they still have Ben Simmons. And well, the 76ers are number one on this list. Number two on this list would be the Celtics. And then after that, it gets a little bit different where the Cavs apparently are number three, the Heat are number four, and the Clippers would round out the top five.
Yeah, so I can fully confirm, and I'm going to put the Homer hat on, that we are without a doubt the most stressed fan base in the NBA. It is terrible. I have a Ben Simmons trade to potentially worry about. Ben Simmons may not actually be that good. Well, all right, let me rephrase that. Ben Simmons may have a fatal flaw that prevents him from going far into the
Sure.
playoffs. Joel Embiid always has an injury or injury risk, it feels like, even
I
with him being that great last year.
I
Like, it
have
always ends in spectacular failure. So is the question is, yes, am I stressed? I am extremely stressed out about the state of the NBA
but
because I know my basketball team is always going to flame out in the most painful way possible.
sure. But I feel like well, first of all, with Joel Embiid, I've never seen someone hit the floor so much and make me worry every single time. Like he
Yes.
always hits the floor. On top of that though, like I'm with you, and I don't think it's a homer thing to say the 76ers are the number one in terms of stressed out teams. The Cavs at number three kind of surprised me, and other teams that just, at least in the top 10, that kind of surprised me. The Magic are number nine,
Hmm.
which is only a little bit behind the Suns. Like, I feel like the Suns, the Lakers, who are 15, maybe the Bucks, who are at 20. Like I feel like those guys should be a lot higher because with the Bucks, it's the stress of having to repeat. The Lakers, the expectation. The Suns, again, expectation. Like they were there last year, and that's probably where it should be. Spurs and Bulls being the bottom two, and the Trailblazers being 28. Trailblazers have a lot of expectation, and like, what are you gonna do with Dame? How is this gonna go? Like, I feel like they should be a lot higher too.
I'm stunned you think the Bucks should be higher because of the stress to repeat. Because I feel like the Bucks should be damn near 30 right now. Are you kidding me? You just won the title. The stress of repeat, sure,
Nah,
but I'm not
yeah,
stressed about that if I'm the fan base. I'm on cloud nine right now.
I
Life
get it.
couldn't be better if I'm a Bucks fan this second.
Sure, but I think at what point does it go? Okay, we won. Now maybe it is. Maybe that this whole thing changes when game one of next season starts, and it's like, okay, new season,
Yeah.
expectations are in. Let's go. Like maybe
I think
because it's the
maybe in the
middle of the
I
summer.
think maybe in the playoffs. Like, I think maybe in the playoffs when they get a tough
Yeah,
series is when it changes, but, like, you're gonna coast. I mean, the
yeah,
Bucks are gonna just have enjoyment because at the end of the day, until those playoffs start, you're still the
sure,
champion. You're the champion until you get
sure.
knocked out, and even if you get knocked out, I look at it as that point where, "Oh, we just won the title a year ago with Giannis." Like, everything
Yeah,
is
yeah,
now, if you had flipped this to a year ago, before with when they were still worried
It
about
was a lot
Giannis before
higher.
Giannis signed that supermax and they lost to Miami, oh, I would have said they have a strong case for number one. I'd have completely been the opposite. But after the way that that planned out, it's hard for me to say that. I completely agree with Portland. Portland should be way, way high. I mean, Portland is what? They're 28. 28 is insane. They
28,
haven't won a
20.
title in ages, and Dame Lillard might be out the door. Portland, to me, should be closer to the top five. The Lakers being at 15 feels ridiculous. I think the Lakers should be way, way lower. Champions
Lower.
recently. Yeah, oh my God. The Lakers are always perennially
Uh,
good for the most
I
part. I mean,
mean, I agree with you on that, but I feel like there's to me a lot of stress, and I think LeBron's been alluding to everybody talking about it. There's been a lot of stress with these guys are old. The team as a whole is old going into this season, and the expectation is a championship, and you have to go through a Giannis, a Nets, a Clippers, a Jazz, a Nuggets. Like you got Suns. There's no slights at the Suns for skipping them. It was kind of a slight by accident, but I caught myself before getting in trouble. But you still have to go through these guys. So like to me, there should be a ton of stress with the Lakers because if it doesn't work this year, you're gonna have to clean house again.
so I guess I think the way I'm viewing this, because I think I agree with you in the sense that you're viewing on a one like season point, and that
Yeah,
any season with LeBron, you're trying to do it because you are in theory up against a figurative clock. My
of
thing with
course.
stress is the way I'm weighing it is how like when's the last time you've been successful? So for somebody like Orlando, for example, I don't think they're at the top because I don't necessarily think the expectations have been there. But the reality
Hmm.
is that the Magic haven't been good in 10 plus years, basically. So to that
Sure,
point, franchises like another one is Detroit, for example, hasn't been good in very
they're
long.
high up too.
Obviously, they have
Yeah.
a little more hope now with Cade Cunningham, but those are the type of franchises that I would maybe put closer to the top. Detroit's in a good spot there at 7. To me, the top spot should be reserved for teams that have playoff expectations, have championship expectations, and just haven't hit them quite yet.
Well, so then
So
that's like to me like the Jazz, right? At
I would
26?
have the Jazz much higher. I don't think the Jazz should be 26. I'm not ready to put the Jazz in like a top 5 position necessarily, but I would have the Jazz much higher. I would have the Knicks
Mhm.
much higher given their combo now of the playoffs and the fact that they haven't been successful in so long. To me, the Knicks being that much lower at 21 seems ridiculous. Every Knicks fan I know is stressed. The Kings being at 18 with the lack of success. Now, granted, I don't know that the Kings have had expectations, but they've been bad for a long time. So I would be pretty stressed about that.
Maybe
Celtics
even
seem
though
high. I
yeah.
know that they haven't necessarily hit their expectations recently, but they still have a lot of flexibility and like a change in, just a change in management, obviously, with Brad Stevens now taking over, Danny Ainge is out of the picture. Like you've got a great duo there. So them being two, I don't necessarily agree with. I know that Boston fans have, in the past with when they signed Gordon Hayward and when, Kyrie was there, I think it was different. And in the sense with Kyrie leaving, that was an extremely stressful season. So I get that.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm like legitimately as a non-homer, like if I take the hat back off, I do think the Sixers should be really close to the top. I would have Portland up there too. To me, Portland not being close to like number 2 is pretty crazy. I would bump Utah up as well, like you said. The only ones going back to it, because the Clippers I would have had there too, especially before this season, and now really with the injury with Kawhi. So you had first the Paul George questions, which I think Paul George dispelled that, but then Kawhi gets hurt, and I think it adds a different layer of stress. So I would have the Clippers up
Yeah.
there as well. They're at 5. The two that I kind of don't get are the Cavs at 3 and the Hawks at 6. The Cavs won a title recently with LeBron, and I think with having the pressure cooker that was all those 1-year deals with LeBron, like I could understand that even with them being good. Like I think that it always felt like there was some drama there. But now, I mean, they haven't been good necessarily, but they're building a fun young core. So I guess I don't necessarily I don't know. It feels like kind of silly that they should be that high. And again, with having a title so recently in 2016, Atlanta at 6 makes no sense to me given the run that they went on. I mean, they were, we talk about what they did last year, getting to the conference finals, beating all expectations, a lot of their young guys taking steps. Like I know Atlanta as a franchise hasn't won really, I mean, since the 50s, and they weren't even in Atlanta at that time. But in terms of overall stress with that current roster, it feels like after the level of success that they had, it would be kind of silly to put them that high. If anything, I feel like I'd be less stressed after that season.
Yeah, if anything, with the Hawks, I would feel like, it's exciting times, and you think, you're you like what you saw, so anything else going into this season, you kind of just have those same expectations, and they didn't change much. So you'd imagine that was what would happen, and maybe a healthier team, and they're right back where they were. So I kind of agree with you. And what's interesting is, for a, I guess, kind of like a second warm up jumper is, um, NBA.com put out their East preseason power rankings the other day,
Hmm.
and I feel like for the most part they're kind of predictable. I mean, the Nets came in at number 1, the Bucks at number 2, so maybe you feel some kind of way about that because the Bucks won, so maybe they should be number 1, but maybe some offseason things and healthier Nets make you change that opinion, I'm not sure. And then after that, it goes Nets 1, Bucks 2, Hawks number 3, 76ers number 4, and then Heat are number 5 to round out the top 5.
I really enjoy how they gave respect to the Hawks for last season and then
Yeah.
disrespected the Bucks for last season at the same time.
Yeah,
Because it's like if you're gonna bet on who do I think is gonna be the best roster next year and who do I think is going to be the best squad, then yes, I'm going to bet on Brooklyn because
sure.
Brooklyn was the best squad until they got hurt. Like again, not dismissing remotely what Milwaukee did. Giannis, just like I said, that game 6, that's one of the best games I've ever seen. That's a masterpiece. Um,
Yeah.
but I can understand the argument with Brooklyn being better than Milwaukee, even with Now, I think in terms of the power rankings, Milwaukee's the defending champ. I think you should give them that respect. But Milwaukee lost a couple of pieces as well, most notably PJ Tucker out the door. Obviously, he was huge in that matchup against Brooklyn. He had defending KD the whole time. But I
Mhm.
think, yeah, if we're being honest, I think Brooklyn's probably going to be the better team. I would rank Milwaukee one, just again out of a more of a respect thing, just because they won the title. But yeah, those two have to be 1 and 2 for me. And then at that point, it gets a little more subjective. I think Miami is right back in the mix. Obviously, getting Kyle Lowry, even keeping Oladipo. I know we basically have gotten nothing out of Oladipo recently, but the fact that they were able to keep him as well on a or on a minimum deal, I should say, they brought in the aforementioned PJ Tucker. I just think Miami did a really good job of reboosting that core. And they didn't really have to give up anybody. That's the thing is like Tyler Hero is still in the mix. Duncan Robinson has a new contract. Kendrick Nunn is still in the mix. Like there are a lot of reasons to, Miami is 2 years removed from the finals. I would imagine that they could be right back there in contention for that. I do think they're still a step behind Brooklyn and Milwaukee, but I think to me, you could make a strong argument for them for 3. I think it's just tough because they haven't played a game together. Um, the Sixers with their drama, and again, the Hawks they are a little bit in prove it mode, so I can understand that where it's like, okay, this is the first time we've seen the Hawks do it. We do want to see them do it again. But again, it kind of goes back to the respect thing where it's like, yo, the Hawks beat tons of teams that I didn't think, well, mainly 2 that in the Knicks and the Sixers that I think most people had them as losing that series. I know I did in
Mhm.
both cases. Um, I think a lot of people also can point to the Sixers and say, "Yo, the Sixers had one of the just all-time meltdowns," and so I think that that's maybe where you could argue that the Sixers should be higher because obviously I think Embiid is the best player out of anybody on those 2 teams. Um, if the Sixers click, they should be better than the Hawks, but they weren't last year, and so that's kind of the problem. It's hard for me to just have them at 4. I mean, you could argue. I mean, either way, I guess I'm fine with the tiers. Put it that way. Like, I don't really think this is that big of a deal. I think the second tier just below Atlanta or not Atlanta, Brooklyn and Milwaukee probably is some combo of those 3 teams, and I would probably throw Boston in the mix too. I mean, Boston had a good offseason. I think they'll be right back there. The East is going to be competitive this year. Again, the Eastern Conference has added a lot of talent recently. The gap is starting to close.
Do you think it's part of the whole, like, get away from LeBron James aspect, or, because the competition in the West is so high always, it's like, let's go to the East. There's still competition out here, but you're not every night is gonna be a slugfest, you know?
Yeah, but I don't think like we haven't seen a lot of these Eastern teams are homegrown. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, obviously Brooklyn, they went out and assembled that 3 big, so it's a little different in that regard. though Brooklyn would run through the West too, in my opinion. I also think that LeBron factor has faded a tiny bit, not a lot, but a tiny bit. Like LeBron is not the lock to go to the finals he's been for the past decade, essentially,
Sure.
which does sound a little wild with them winning a title 2 years ago. But I mean, we kind of see it in the player survey this year. Like I think the throne is more up for the grabs than it's been in quite a while. Like there is the age and the injury factors do matter. Like we'd be,
Yeah.
we just would be negligent to dismiss that. But I mean, Milwaukee is completely homegrown, obviously. Philly is completely homegrown. Miami is not fully homegrown. Jimmy Butler's a free agent signing, but a lot of those guys, were their young core with Bam and all the supporting cast are pretty largely homegrown. Boston, obviously, with Tatum and Jaylen Brown, both of those guys that they drafted. So I do think it's just been teams nailing their draft picks as well. Like that's why the West has been so good. It's not like the West has just been signing every major free agent. They also have just those teams have drafted well. Those franchises
Yeah.
have just perpetually been better the past couple of years. I think between free agency and the mix of a couple of other teams starting to get it right, we are starting to see it balance out a little bit. I mean, I think the top six in the East is probably as good as the top six in the West, if not arguably better. I mean, you're looking at, the defending champions in the East. Brooklyn is, I would to me, Brooklyn's the best team in the league going into next year. So those are both Eastern Conference teams. I don't think
Hmm.
even with that tier two, like Miami, Philly, Atlanta, I think they all can hang in the West. It's not one of these situations where it's a 40-win 8 seed team that goes over to the West and would just get their ass kicked every night.
Yeah. I almost, trying to tear it out. I I think I agree with you, but I almost feel like after Brooklyn and after Milwaukee, I feel like for the most part, I would have the next probably 3 or 4 teams from the West, where it would be, Clippers, Lakers, Suns, Nuggets, Jazz, some kind of combination of all that.
Yeah, I don't know that I fully agree with that. The Clippers are tough right now with injuries. Just not having
Yeah,
Kawhi, I don't really know what to expect with them next year. So that's a little bit of a tough situation. Um, I mean, we haven't even mentioned the Knicks as well. I mean, the Knicks are the
I
four
know.
seed last year. I mean, that they're another one. If they can repeat, should be right back there. And obviously, they added Kemba Walker. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough for me. Like I do think the Lakers are better, assuming everybody is healthy. I agree with that. I think Phoenix, if they can repeat it, should obviously be right there. And that's where I think it starts to get sketchy. Denver should be to me if Jamal Murray is fully healthy, but again, they need Jamal Murray for them to be that. Utah has questions. Like that's just the reality. Utah
Yeah.
flamed out in the second round. They're a number one seed, but I don't think Utah is significantly better than that second tier of Eastern teams that you mentioned. So again, I think they're very good. But I do have a couple of questions last year, and that kind of alludes back to the stress. Where to me, like Utah, they kind of escaped a lot of flack. I think because of the way that Philly so spectacularly burned out, and then because of the Dame question starting to pop up. But I mean, Utah had a pretty unceremonious exit as well from the playoffs last year, given their expectations and given that Kawhi didn't play in the last 2 games.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I still think I'd have them over. I think I have a healthy Jazz over a few of the other guys. And I'm not maybe it's just a feel thing right now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely. They have more chemistry, put it that way.
Yeah,
Obviously, this team
true.
has been together for a long time. I think that I guess it all just depends down to that second tier because I have more faith in Utah than I do in the Knicks right now than I probably do in Boston
Do you
at this
have
point. I still generally have, which it sounds disrespectful, but I do have more faith probably in Utah than I do in Atlanta. And
Mhm.
then at that point, it's do I think Utah is better than Philly and better than Miami? I don't know. I'm kind of high on this Miami team, so I lean no with Miami. I lean maybe with Philly because I don't know what there's just too many uncertain questions right now with Philly. Like Philly in the
Yeah.
regular season, it kind of has the same thing that Utah has, though to an even more extreme variance, just because of what Ben Simmons is, or well, rather what he isn't. is what
Yeah.
obviously we know the issue is there. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
I'm focused now, and the bleep, that don't matter. It won't even cross my mind.
I mean, I agree. Okay. Geez. I have no idea, but I hope whoever it is locked in.
It's John Morant, and he is locked in. He put out a few cryptic tweets today and into yesterday that I was kind of like, huh, I wonder if something annoying went down with some of his buddies. So he's doing his own thing now, you know?
Yeah. I have no idea, but I'm good. I'm glad Jaws locked in. It doesn't seem
hmm
like. I mean, there were a couple Grizzlies rumors floating around, mainly with Dylan Brooks. I think we started to kind of see that towards the end of last year, but I don't know. I mean, largely besides that, I feel like they're running it back essentially. So
Yeah, and I like what we saw, the development from Ja. I think I think everyone's kind of happy with where he's at and where he's going.
they got Jared Culver in the mix too, which again, that
hmm
we're not 100%. Like Jared Culver's been pretty disappointing this year. I think that's fair or to his career so far. I think that's pretty fair to say. But that's the type of flyer that you take if you're Memphis, So,
hmm
a lot of success for them last year. We'll see what they can do this year. We'll get into them buying out Rondo in a little bit as well, and kind of towards the second half of the show. In the
hmm
meantime, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you are not an Apple user, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Player FM, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and be sure to follow us on YouTube, Driving Dish NBA on YouTube. You can watch a video version of this podcast or watch it from your phone or however. If you're not into the actual podcast listening side of it, there is video for you as well.
Now, a word from our sponsors.
So we are big fans of things that happen in threes. For example, Kevin is a big PSL fan, and we are fans of three-team deals. Yep, there. So if you're watching on YouTube,
Sponsor me, baby.
Kevin's drinking himself a pumpkin spice latte, and that's why we're getting into a three-team deal that sends Markkanen to Cleveland, which is the main headliner of the whole thing. Larry Nance Jr. ends up in Portland, and Derrick Jones Jr. goes to Chicago. And I believe there is a lottery pick somewhere along there from the Trailblazers to Chicago, or
Yeah,
lottery protected in 2022 first round,
they have a
if I'm not
protected
mistaken.
first round. Yeah, the protected first round pick is via Portland, and they have a
Yeah.
protected 2023 second round pick. That's via Denver.
Yep.
But
Okay.
yeah, that'll be going to Chicago. For the record, if anyone decides to flame me on pumpkin spice lattes, I am ready. I am that GIF of Jon Snow in the Battle of the Bastards. Like I love everything pumpkin, bro. Like pumpkin spice lattes, beers, pumpkin bread, pumpkin cookies,
the
actual pump.
only, the only Okay, I like actual pumpkins. Like I love pumpkin carving and doing that. But the only pumpkin spice flavor thing that I actually can get behind is a donut. Like a pumpkin spice donut that's still hot.
Oh yeah, yep,
You can get me on that. Anything else? Like I'm not the biggest fan of pumpkin spice lattes or pumpkin spice coffee. Like I'm kind of a plain coffee drinker at this point. I'm kind of boring about it. It's like kind of gross the kind of coffee that I drink. But to that, I get why everybody likes it. So I don't necessarily hate on it.
yeah. And I mean, listen, you like something. You're not a complete terrorist out here, so that's good. That's huge. I didn't want to have to like
Yeah.
reevaluate anything here.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I just don't it doesn't I don't know, it doesn't taste like something about it tastes funky to me, and I
mhm.
can't figure out what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the cinnamon nutmeg combo, so I guess it's
Yeah.
probably something in there. But anyway, back to the trade. So it was interesting because I mean, we knew Lauri Markkanen was out in
Yeah.
Chicago. I think there was no doubt about that. Lauri Markkanen, it's interesting with Markkanen because he's somebody that, he started out with a lot of expectations, had a great rookie year, had a really great second year, and then just kind of hasn't recaptured that magic since then, to the point where, and I mean, he lost minutes last year essentially once Chicago brought Vucevic in, and so the writing was on the wall there. So you're not really surprised that he gets moved from Chicago. Now, I'm a little surprised that Cleveland is the move, I guess, because they
Yeah.
already have a pretty loaded front court. They just drafted Evan Mobley. They just gave Jared Allen over $100 million. You've still got Kevin Love on the roster, who we'll get into in
Yeah.
a little bit. It's a potential bet, and so Cleveland is obviously still figuring out their young core and their direction, and they have a couple of guys to build around. And so I get taking the flyer on Markkanen. I guess I just also don't get it because the front court is crowded. Like, I don't really know where he fits in,
Hmm.
unless he plays the Kevin Love role. I guess that's the question: is if they end up moving on from Kevin Love, I get it a little more from that perspective. And again, I do think that's a good potential bet, but you basically have him playing a role that's already filled right now, and you gave him a pretty fair amount of money with 67 million.
Yeah. So I k- I kind of look at it from a few ways where I kind of like the idea of Garland, Sexton, Mobley, Markkinen, and Jared Allen. Like I like that young lineup. I'm intrigued by that. I want to see it. So
Mhm.
when I saw this, I assumed this meant Kevin Love was on the move or ends up somewhere. I know the rumors are going around saying that they just haven't found a trade that they like yet. And obviously with Kevin Love, which is kind of the same with Markkinen in general, is there is a little bit of an injury concern, more with Kevin Love right now, but Markkinen
Yes.
has had that problem too, and so I think it could be a really cool young lineup for the Cavs, and I really like it. So I want to see it, on the court. I want to see it a lot, which is why I think they have to move on from Kevin Love so that there isn't such a logjam like you're talking about. It's kind of crazy to think that the Marketing trade, well, essentially, the Bulls acquired Marketing from the Timberwolves. That was the trade that Jimmy Butler and Zach Levine were involved in.
Yes,
So that's like, you look back at that, that's 2017. It feels like it was forever ago.
it does.
Um, but you look back at that, and I mean, really, at the end of the day, I don't think either team won that trade. Maybe Chicago, because they got Zach Levine.
Um, yeah, I mean, Minnesota had a year with Jimmy Butler and it went well.
Yeah,
Like, they won a playoff series. So that's the type of
yeah,
swing.
but
Now, granted, it
yeah,
ended spectacularly bad with him and Wiggins and Carl Anthony Towns. Um, Still just incredible that Minnesota let him go to that practice. But I don't want to necessarily call that a failure. Obviously, I think in hindsight, you wish that they had got rid of Wiggins instead of Zach Levine. I mean, Zach Levine is so
yeah,
much better than I think people thought he would be. He's become a much more polished player. The athleticism obviously always was off the charts. We knew that. Word
hmm
to him winning all those dunk contests early on. It's just kind of crazy that I mean, he became just a much more rounded player. Obviously, he was the core piece now of what Chicago is doing essentially. Um, and I think that's where it's good value for them to get a first rounder back essentially with Markkinen. I mean, here's the thing. Markkinen's value is shot. So you're never going to get the type of premium that you were going to get, his second year where, you could have maybe got a first and a pretty useful player. But you still got to protect it first, and you get Derrick Jones Jr., somebody who's been really solid the last 2 years. Broke out officially in Miami as more as a high flyer, but he was fine in Portland last year. He's on an expiring deal as well, so that's the thing is like even if he stinks, he's gone next year, and it gives you more cap flexibility. So I don't really think like it's not a home run trade for anybody for Chicago, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad deal for them given the situation, just because everyone on earth knew Markkanen was leaving. That's the thing. There's no real surprise element with this deal.
yeah. Well, and that's the point. Is I'm surprised that they, and maybe they just, with the picks and stuff like that, it got crazy. It's like I'm surprised it just wasn't like a quick, oh, Markkinen's on the move. Like they just took the first offer ish, as long as it fit what they were looking for, and went with it. Like they kind of took their time on the trade, made sure they found something that they felt was good value, and got another team involved and got all this stuff going, which is fine. But from a chemistry standpoint, it felt like Marketing was out, and we knew he was out, and nobody was surprised about this trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, in terms of Portland, I mean, they probably did the best in this deal to me. I think Larry Nance Jr. I mean, what's Portland's problem been in the past couple of years? That they haven't been able to defend anybody. Larry Nance Jr. is
Hmm.
a good defensive player. I don't necessarily. they're trying to shake it up enough to keep Dame. They haven't gone with the full shakeup yet, which I think everyone is talking about with potentially trading CJ. That would be, something that would realistically shake the core up the most and get you a good value. Um, but Portland was, horrific defensively. I mean, they were 29th in the entire league defensively last year. Larry
Mhm.
Nance is a good defender. He can defend multiple positions. He's an excellent rebounder. Um, you know, again, Larry Nance Jr. is a rotation player. I'm not suggesting that this is going to suddenly move Portland super up the ranks, but it's the type of player that you want to bring in on this roster and somebody who I think can do a lot of things well for Portland. I think it boosts their short-term ceiling a little bit. Between their only other, they brought Norman Powell back, who played really well for them post trade. So I think that that's a good move there. You haven't totally shaken it up, but between Nance, between Covington, between Powell a little bit as well. They brought Cody Zeller in. They're a little bit better defensively. Again, I'm not exactly going, all right, Portland back to the finals. They're on track. They've done everything they need to keep Dame to stay. But it had that, this is the type of move that you get in on. They basically got Larry Nance Jr. for, almost nothing for Derrick Jones Jr., who just, it felt a little repetitive there at that point. So, I think this is a good, again, it's not the home run necessarily that Portland may be looking for, but sometimes you got to hit singles. This is a really good single getting Larry Nance Jr. in the mix.
Yeah, I like it for them. He posted on social media this morning that he is going to wear number 11 and asked someone to Photoshop him into an 11 jersey with the with for Portland. So he actually changed his Twitter picture when someone did that for him. So I thought that was kind of a cool little social media back and forth. But yeah, it helps him with the defense. It's no ground shaking change up that makes everyone go, okay, Portland's going for it here. I still think there's potential something going on with maybe a CJ McCollum or a Dame Lillard or something, But as of now, I think this is they're trying to find ways to put band-aids on things and give themselves another chance at running with it and keeping Dame happy.
One of the best teams Dame has ever had, arguably, were teams that were stout defensively.
Hmm.
Dame Lillard is never going to be a great defender, and I think that's only going to get worse as he gets older. But you know, it doesn't matter, obviously. Like we give it everything else that he does, but you need to surround him with good defenders. And
Yeah,
they didn't last year. They haven't particularly in the past. And so I think that this is a step in the right direction. I still think there are ways, you can win with Dame in defense. And I think that's what Portland needs to lean into more. And that's what they're kind of doing here a little bit. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. So, Justin, start with you. Who's balling this week?
sure. Ballin for me is going to be Shaq.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw this, but he challenged LeBron and Dwayne Wade to a father-son tournament. So the idea is LeBron and Bronny versus Dwayne and Zaire and Shaquille and Sharif. And then the idea is who do you think would win out of that?
It's really entertaining. I got to be honest. Like you look at this combo, and again, it's just number one, genetics are incredible. The fact that all these, like, obviously three of the best NBA players ever, but the fact that their kids are all this good too. It just shows what genetics can do. But
Yeah,
um, I mean, LeBron is probably the best of the current. That's the thing. Shaq is pretty old, man. Like,
yeah,
obviously, I don't think I'm never going to suggest that Shaquille O'Neal just suddenly is bad at basketball, but Shaq is significantly older than LeBron and Wade are at this point. LeBron is
yeah.
still actively one of the best players in the NBA. And at that point, too, you just kind of, when you look at the Suns, Shaq's son is probably because Shaq's son, I believe, is already playing D1 right now.
I think so. Yeah,
And so to me, I would assume just off that he's the best of the kids right this second. Now Bronny is going to go D1 as well. And I think Zaire Wade is definitely really he's a D1 prospect. I think Bronny is better from what everyone has kind of because they were on the same team. And I think when I was doing, my late night, not late night, but like my, my scouting reports on Sierra Canyon or whatever it was,
yeah,
then
yeah.
people were talking about Bronny with a whole lot more upside. It seemed like, um, I would assume that the James gang wins. If I were to, this is hilarious to think about. Um, again, I would love to see Shaq play basketball in his old age. I hope he doesn't kill himself trying to guard LeBron.
Yeah.
But I do think, again, there'd be some advantage with the O'Neals because I do think Sharif is probably the best of the kids right now. But I mean, LeBron still being in active NBA shape feels like it's a pretty hefty advantage, no?
Yeah, I think LeBron and Fam would get it for sure. I kind
Yeah.
of feel like that's the easy low hanging fruit there. I think if you go any further, you're kind of thinking too much about it, and that's just where it is.
Yeah. All right, balling for me this week. The NBA's vaccination policy for their employees, for the refs, for stadium workers, everybody in these positions is going to have to be vaccinated. It's a vaccine mandate. Listen, you got to get the jab or you got to lose your job. I'm a personal choice guy. I'm not really gonna, you got to do what's best for you. But the reality is, public health has consequences, and I think a lot of times it may kind of tip people on the fence to go get it too. So I think that
Hmm.
this is the NBA. I'm glad they're mandating it. I think it'll encourage people to go get it and do avoid the hospital. We live in Florida. It is surging here right now. The numbers are off the charts right now, and the people that are dying are all unvaccinated. So please, for the love of God, go get the vaccine.
Well, and like to that, there's a lot of people that are talking about the concerts that are coming here to Jacksonville, and a lot of them are requiring proof of vaccination, or you have to go like the day before to get a test to
Hmm.
make sure that you can test negative. And so, you know, the easier thing to do is just be vaccinated in that scenario. Then you don't have to worry about getting a test beforehand of a concert and potentially missing out on a concert that you're excited about. So
Yeah.
it's a big part of it too.
Well, I mean, go to the NFL. It's like, there was that whole story with Cole Beasley, who's a receiver for the Bills. He's adamant that he's not getting vaccinated.
Yeah.
Isaiah, what's his name? I think it's Isaiah McKenzie, who is he's a rookie wide receiver for them. He also got fined because he didn't have a mask on. He wasn't vaccinated. So the league fined him, $14,500, I think. He's a rookie. He's only making like 750K or whatever, but like
Yeah.
that's not an insignificant amount of money when you have, when you're not making multi-millions of dollars, you're not on that big NFL contract. And guess what? He posted on his Instagram story that he went and got the vaccine because he's just like, all right, they're basically forcing my hand, but I'm gonna do it. So, it's
Yeah.
for the greater public health. Like we could do a whole podcast on this, but
I
the greater public health sometimes should
well
override your choice.
and I'm kind of from the side of like, look, I want everybody to be allowed to make their own choice, and everybody is different and stuff like that. So part of me does hate when it gets forced. But also, if it's been proven over and over again that it's for the best, then all right, here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Real
So
random quick, but speaking of the best, I hope everybody in New Orleans and Louisiana is safe with
yeah.
Hurricane Ida. That's bearing down as we speak. Major
Hmm.
category 4 hurricane. I think obviously everyone instantly gets Katrina flashbacks, but shout out to everybody in New Orleans. I hope most of you got out. Anybody who's there hunkering down, I hope you all are safe. Our thoughts, our prayers are with
Yeah.
you guys, and we just hope everybody is able to hold up through this.
Well, Nicole's friend works at TPC New Orleans. It's like right outside of the city, from my
Yeah,
understanding. And I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, "Yeah, I think we need. I'm gonna stay here. I need to make sure the course is good and all this stuff." And I was like, "Bro, you're staying to make sure the grass is good. You're staying to make sure some trees don't fall down. Like,
yeah, they're
get
falling.
out of there."
The
Yeah, I
trees
was
are
like,
falling, guy. Another we
I
can
was
do to
like, "Get
stop
out!"
that.
Yeah, it's like, "Get out of there." What is you being there gonna do anything? Okay, so the trees stay down a little bit longer, and I get it. With golf, it's so crazy how specific they are about the grass and stuff like that. And if a tree lays on it too long because they're specific about it, the grass could die. But it's like, bro, just get out of there, man. Like,
Yeah,
get out, come back. It's not gonna be the end of the world.
you can always
It's not
rebuild a
worth
golf course.
Right, it's not worth getting hurt over, but we'll see what he ends up doing, and I'm not sure what he ended up doing or if he left or not, but either way, over to Fallen. My Fallen is actually going to be Rondo and the Lakers. So Rondo is 35 years old
Hmm.
and potentially joining the Lakers. There's some talk about Monday when he clears the waivers, he'll go to the Lakers. At 35 years old, there will still be 5 other Lakers that are older than him and playing significant minutes. Carmelo, LeBron, Gasol, Ariza, and Dwight Howard.
I forgot
He'll
about
be
Trevor Ariza being there too. Oh man, it really
yeah,
is
and
like
they'll be I don't know when Rondo's birthday is, but I know Dwight's is before the playoffs because I kind of remember the Sixers celebrating it. So he'll be 36 by the playoffs. So you'll at least have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys over the age of 36, maybe 6 if Rondo is 36 by that point.
he will be. Rondo's 36th birthday is February 22nd. So
Okay.
he will be 36 by the time the playoffs come rolling around. I kind of love it. Like, here's the thing. I mean, I think it's a great because I guess let's just talk Rondo now. Like, I mean, it made sense for Memphis to buy him out. Memphis is obviously like what Rondo can bring on the leadership front, I
Yeah,
think is important.
of
But I
course.
think
And
Rondo
the
clearly is.
playoffs that we've seen from even the time when he was with the Lakers, like we've seen he can show up still, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, and while what he could bring to Memphis, I don't doubt the importance there. But Rondo's obviously at the point of his career where he's going to be, wanting to
Right.
play for contenders, more exploring championships, and that's where he's going back to the Lakers. Obviously, had a super role in that. But it was remarkable. Like I say this all the time. Like Rondo was so bad that regular season, the Lakers won the title. He was horrific, like borderline unplayable at points, and then just went into the playoffs and totally went back into vintage playoff Rondo mode was a huge part of them winning the
Yep.
title. Obviously, LeBron praises his basketball IQ. They've had success there before. Bringing Dwight back, who was a big part of that run as well. It's just I love the Lakers going all in on the old guys and bringing Melo in
Mhm.
and bringing Russ in. I mean, my concerns with the Lakers, besides the age and the injury, are just simple as that: is can Russ play with at a high level with these guys, or is his lack of shooting going to kind of is that going to loom large come playoff time? We've seen Westbrook teams in recent years kind of have ceilings a little bit. So it'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see how he fits with LeBron without a doubt. Um, but I mean, it's just like I just can't get over the roster. Like every time I think about it, like you go back and if you had told me like when we started this podcast, let's say around the time that you would have a situation where LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, Rondo, Dwight Howard, Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook were just all on the same team, and it would just be like, wait, what? Like, how is it even remotely possible? And it's just like all the combined career arcs and the different ways that they've gone, and now how they've all ended up back here in LA.
Somehow they kept coming out here. I was trying to find there was a story about Westbrook being ranked a tier C player, and I was trying to figure out who put it out there because I wanted to bring it up, but I can't seem to find it right now. All the stories on Westbrook right now are about this watch that he apparently bought Harden for his birthday a day ago. I'm trying to
Oh,
find out what the damn watch is. It's
well, that's
the
good. That's
problem is
cool. They're friends still.
a Richard Millie watch. Are those nice?
Oh yeah, yeah. Are those nice? Yeah. Well, so all right, I'll get into watch mode for a second because every
Because
rapper in the world is rapping about Richard Millie's right now. They're
okay,
like, for some perspective here, just a Richard Millie's costing like $250,000. Like it's not even like it's like a Rolex where it's like 5, 10, 15 grand, which pretty
I don't
out
even.
of
Oh, okay,
range for
and
most normal people. A Richard Mille is costing like 250 plus $1 million. Like it's
yeah,
that
well,
type of like
s-
ridiculous luxury.
so here's the thing. I'm looking at them right now, and maybe it's because I'm not a watch guy. I don't get it. Like it looks like a watch.
I
Why
don't
is
get
this
it either.
watch almost $200,000? Why is this watch $50,000? Why is this watch $500,000? It looks like one I could go buy at Dick's Sporting Goods.
So it comes down to the reason it gets up there, besides the like obviously like
Name,
the precious metals that they put into it a
sure.
little bit, and because it's handmade and stuff like that. But and with a lot of those luxury watches, they'll have just insane, ridiculous complications and stuff like that. Like my favorite watch of all time is made by this company called IWC, and it literally
Okay,
has the moon phases on the top, and it rises and goes like
that's
as
cool.
the day goes on. Like that to me. Now, is it still ridiculous that it costs that much? Absolutely. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
not about to here just sitting out here defending that type of that. And I agree with you. I think the Richard Mille watches are ugly. Like, I think Diddy said it the other day. He's like, "Y'all are getting finessed, every single one of you." And he's like, "I even have a couple of these." Like, I'm super because like obviously he's super rich, but I'm with you. I think they're kind of ugly. But every
I just
rapper,
don't get
every
them.
athlete, like they're all rapping about Richard Miller. Like it's just that's the moment thing. And of course, they're ridiculously expensive, so it's a flex thing as well. I'm with you. I love watches. I am a watch guy. Like if I had the like that to me would be what the one item I might splurge on. I think the Richard Mille watches are hideous. But shout
I
out to Russell
do.
Westbrook for being a good friend to James Harden because he just gave him like a $250,000 watch. So like,
Right.
that's some
It's
friendship.
nice. And look, I do think I need a watch because like I have a tattoo on my wrist, and so there are times where I just feel like it looks better if I have it covered up, and putting a watch over it fits perfectly. So I've been always trying to find a watch that looks nice and can kind of go with any kind of outfit for a night out, but like I just haven't found anything. So I usually just wear an Apple Watch and just roll with that, you
That's
know?
kind of where I'm at this point. Like I got an Apple Watch last year. I was pretty late to the Apple Watch thing, and I have an
Same.
iPhone and I've done all that. But I don't know, like I have multiple like regular watches and I just was wearing them. And I still do, but I gotta tell you that Apple Watch changed the game a little bit. It's pretty versatile. And it goes with
Yeah.
everything. Like that's the thing is it's just the fact that it goes with everything really changes it and makes it useful. So
Well, that's like
I'm kind of with you there.
that's my go-to for any kind of clothing is go with a generic color that can go with most other colors. That's why like I have hats. Like this is probably the most like out there colored hat I have, this blue, which can most likely go with anything. I
Mhm.
have gray and black and white, and again, those all go with everything. And so I'm not going to go out there and get like I don't know, an orange hat or a red hat just because that doesn't necessarily go with stuff that I continuously wear. So like with the Apple Watch, you can just go with the generic band and you're good. And I do have a nicer one that's like a gold, it looks like a gold band, it's metallic. And that way it's like a an upgraded nicer looking version, but I hate wearing that because it pinches my wrist hair. So I don't wear it.
No, I mean, I feel you. Like that is the thing. I'm right there with you. If I ever stumble upon $1 billion, I promise you, I got you. I got you on a really nice watch.
Dope. Dope.
Because I'm the same way. I mean, I like watches a lot. I do want to dip my hat a little bit and just say the shrimping ain't easy. Go jumbo shrimp.
Mhm. Go
Um,
shrimp.
I know, I know it's been up a little bit, but just in case, got shout out to the shrimp a little bit. All right, falling for me this week. Also, the NBA's vaccination policy. Why you ask? Because why on earth are they making it mandatory for literally everyone except the players? Is the NBA scared of the players right
Mm.
now? Here's the thing: you better get unscared of them real quick because you know what's going to get like to me it's selfish. And I guess that's kind of my thing that always comes back to the vaccine thing is like I do. And again, this is my opinion, but I think it's selfish. Like if I'm on a contending team, if I'm on the Brooklyn Nets, and let's say, you know, person X doesn't have the vaccine and then gets COVID, and we're here next year and this is still a thing, and we're in the playoffs, and Kevin Durant gets exposed, let's say James Harden gets exposed, something like that, and then all of a sudden they can't play in the playoffs, you're potentially knocking your team out because they just,
Sure.
what's the most important thing in sports? Being available. And to me, the fact that if you're not going to get vaccinated, and I know you can get breakthrough cases, but you're not going to die from the breakthrough case. And B, it'll go away faster. You could be more available again. Like you're more than likely not going to get it. It just feels weird for me for the NBA to be leaning on the refs, the owners, the coaches, the stadium workers, all these other people that are associated with the league, and then not lean on the players. I know the players are your bread and butter, but it's like, look, the NFL's done it or made it, or you need to do, or let me rephrase that. You need to do what the NFL's done, and that's fine. If you want to get vaccinated, you better be putting up negative tests like every 48 hours. Like you are
Sure.
literally going to get tested nonstop every single time because you are putting your team at risk.
Well, and here's what I wonder. I wonder if there's something with the NBA Players Association that they're not allowed to require them to do something like that. Like there might actually be something in the terms that they're not allowed to do, you know? And on top of that, to play devil's advocate, everybody else you mentioned, I'm not necessarily sure how much the refs make, but I would imagine that everybody else in terms of salary wise, they really, really, really need the job,
Mhm.
and that is their livelihood. Whereas like the players, like, yeah, they're making a lot of money. They probably already have made a lot of money from the top end, of players. So I wonder if there's a little bit of concern on that end of players walking away if they're going to make them do it.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that obviously the players have a significantly amount more money than I
Sure.
mean, NBA refs
Hmm.
make great money, don't get me wrong.
They
NBA
do.
coaches also make great money, but most players that have been in the league for any fair amount of time based on their salaries are a little bit higher. So in
Hmm.
the sense that it's like, yeah, maybe they'd be more willing to walk, but I'm also just like, are they? Like if you're an
Maybe not.
NBA
Yeah.
guy at the peak of your career, and if you are,
You
so be it.
walk.
If you're that dedicated to it, listen, do your thing. But I'm also just like, I mean, that kind of gets us into Kevin Love. Like Kevin Love is not letting those $60 million go away. Like this is potentially like this is
Yeah.
generational wealth at some points, and you're going to risk that, and you're going to potentially put the opportunity on the table like that because you don't want to go get a coronavirus vaccine. Like,
Right.
so I do think if you lean on the players, like it to me, because it doesn't matter what it takes for people to get the vaccine as long as they get it. I don't care what gets you to that point. Like I have people that I know that are I'm not going to put them on blast, but the only reason they got vaccinated is because they wanted to travel. Look, do I agree with the thinking? No, I don't. But guess what? You got here. You did the right results. Like I don't really care how you get there as long as you get there in the end.
My parents were kind of saying the same thing where I guess maybe it's not Philly, but there's somewhere that's doing like, if you get vaccinated, you get into the lottery and you have a
Mhm.
chance to win some money and blah blah blah. My mom's like, well, what the hell? We went and got it. We didn't get any chance at money. And I was like, I was like, you don't understand. They're just trying to get anybody to get it at any way possible. And if they have to bribe them a little bit, they're gonna do it. But
Well, it's the way to
she
end
was
this.
like, right, but she was like, "Well, what the hell? I want a chance at winning money." And I was like, "All right, well, you already got vaccinated, so you don't get that chance."
Yo, I got to tell you
So,
that this is real quick. This is hilarious. This is from Christian Vocal on Twitter at CVOELKEI55. And he tweeted he's in the Louisiana area, and he says
ooh.
every chip in the aisle is gone before anyone wants Anthony Davis trash ruffles. People would literally rather starve in this hurricane, and it's empty shelves except for a ton of bags of whatever flavor Anthony Davis's ruffle chips are. Yo, I respect that type of petty. That is incredible. That they are just like, nah, we still don't care. The city's about to get destroyed, but whatever. You left. See
We're
ya.
not yeah, we're not touching your damn chips.
That
That's
is
funny though.
absolutely
Maybe
incredible.
they're a trash flavor. Maybe they're not a good flavor, you
I'm
know?
about here. Hang on, let me look them up real quick. Because I'm curious. Because they looked pretty good. It's something green, like it might have been a jalapeno type flavor, and I'm like, fam,
Ooh,
what a
I'd be in on that.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like jalapeno is a pretty good flavor and chip. Hang on, here we go. Ruffles, but yeah, it's lime and jalapeno. This is a good flavor. It's not even like it's something. Y'all cleared the salt and vinegar chips out before you bought the Anthony Davis chips. That is
Listen,
terrorism at its finest.
no, I'm telling you what though, you gotta be true to yourself. Like if I don't know. I feel like Jimmy Butler wouldn't count. Like, I don't think Philly hates Jimmy Butler as much
I
as.
don't hate you. Honestly, I don't dislike Jimmy Butler at
Yeah,
all as a fan. If anything, I dislike Ben Simmons more in a way now because of Jimmy Butler.
it would be like Terrell Owens having a flavor and Philly like avoiding it. You know what I mean?
So I don't hear
Or
hot Philly take. I don't hate To either. I have
no?
zero ill will towards To. To makes me sad. To is a sad what if because they just never reached the heights that they could have. To is also a
Yeah,
crazy what if because To in the Super Bowl was on one leg and literally had
yeah,
like 11 receptions for 140 yards. There's a statue of him in Philadelphia if they win that first Super Bowl against the
of
Patriots.
course.
Like given just the heroic effort that he put in, do I love the way it ended, and do I wish that he and McNabb had been able to work it out? Of course I do. But do I hate Terrell Owens? And no, not even remotely.
That's fair. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of the I don't know of like a betrayal that would be that high for us to compare it to and
Oh,
be like, would you?
It'd be like Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City. Um,
Yeah, Kevin
I think
Durant,
that
Jalen Ramsey down here. Like if they came out with Ramsey Oreos, nobody's touching those. You know what I mean? Like
Jax really hates Jalen Ramsey that much.
yeah, because he faked being injured to get out of a game so that they would trade him. Like that's why they hate him so much.
I'm really surprised just because of how good he was and how close y'all were to the Super Bowl with.
Well, yeah, and I mean I get that, but the way it ended is so like, dude,
It was
you
messy,
totally
and
bailed
Jalen
on
Ramsey
us.
should have been a
Yeah,
Jag forever. Like he was obviously one of the best defensive players in the league. It's just crazy that it did work out like that. Um, yeah, I mean NBA wise, I mean KD in Brooklyn or not in Brooklyn, KD in Oklahoma City would be the one that I kind of think about the most recently.
yeah.
I mean, first time around, LeBron in Cleveland, it would have been like that. I think obviously that's
Maybe
pivoted.
Jimmy in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to. I mean, in terms of Philly, like, I don't want to make it a Philly thing. I'm trying to think of like
We
what
haven't had like
Philly
a
athlete
betrayal.
betrayed the city, quote
Has there been
unquote.
a betrayal like that?
I mean, yeah, if somebody's forced their way out,
But like big time, like star player forced their way out. I
not with
don't
the
really.
Sixers, not recently. I mean, it, like Jimmy left kind of on his own. I don't think anyone holds any ill will towards Jimmy. Um, I mean, it would be Ben Simmons. I think right now, given the way that it ended, I think
That's
if you
fair.
like it would be, and it's a damn shame. And that's what the reaction that Ben Simmons, how people want to blame the fans is hilarious to me because I'm like, yo, the fans were literally they could have been more supportive of Ben Simmons bricking every free throw and going 32% of the line from the
They
playoffs.
were
Like,
we def- I can't tell you how many times I defended Ben Simmons.
no, that's why I'm upset. I said whenever I get into a Ben Simmons conversation, with anybody, because I got flamed in a group chat the other day because I said Ben Simmons was going to just destroy Donovan Mitchell for their entire careers, and I'm just like,
Uh
um, but like I always go back to it's like you guys can't be more disappointed in Ben Simmons than me. Like I feel like Tyra Banks on that clip
yeah,
of America's Next Top Model, where it's like we believed in you. You you didn't take this seriously. I'm just upset
yeah.
more than anything because it's just the potential is there, and it's not like just he stinks. It's because he's so good that and just won't get over that block. But we'll have way too
I
much
know.
time to talk about that. Kevin Love says he's not turning down his 60 million. Do we think he's? I mean, he basically says he doesn't want to be bought out. No one on earth is trading for that contract outside of Cleveland. Let's be very, very honest. No one. I mean, I feel like if anything, that's a negotiation tactic. Unless you maybe get a third team involved here. I mean, I guess how do you see this playing out? Because I mean, do we think he just stays in Cleveland for the next 2 years?
Uh, maybe. I mean, I don't see like you said. Unless there's a team at the bottom that's willing to get some extra assets out of it potentially, but I don't see them being able to do it. And so yeah, I see Kevin Love chilling there, but I don't fault Kevin Love at all. Like they gave you that contract, that's your money. Go get your money, you know?
Oh yeah, and I mean, they maxed him. Kevin Love brought
Mhm.
them a championship. It's just such a weird act with Kevin Love because obviously, like Kevin Love is always going to be beloved in Cleveland. He was super
Mhm.
instrumental to them winning a title. Broke the drought, and all. I mean, he chose to stay there even after LeBron left. Like he doubled down, but it's just been so bad the past couple of years between him not being able to get on the floor and then like the reported fight with Colin Sexton and a couple of other things. So, um, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, at that point, I guess you try to play it out, but I mean, I don't know who trades for that contract without heavy stipulations attached to it. I mean, it's only 2 years left. That's the thing. Is like if you get through this year, you could buy out Kevin Love the following year and just call it a
Mhm.
day and move on. But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to get multiple first rounders back, I think, at this point, if I'm just going to take this contract. And I don't think any
Well,
I mean,
it's
the logical buy, if he gets bought out, let the record show that I think he's going to the Lakers. And I think he's going to join the old man party. And it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, he and Russ played together in college. He and LeBron have the Cleveland ties. Like, it genuinely, I think, would be a good pickup for the Lakers. I don't know what Kevin Love can exactly do in 2021, mostly because I just haven't seen him on the floor in that long. Um,
yeah.
but I mean, I also thought Nick Batum was a walking corpse as well, and then he put in a lot of great minutes for the Clippers last year. Once he got a situation where he was remotivated a little bit, I can't exactly say that Cleveland's been the most motivating team for Kevin Love as they're going through a rebuild these days.
Right. And I mean that's the same as Batum with the Hornets was. It was kind of like a rebuild kind of am I really going to give it my all type situation? I don't know.
Yeah. Either way, though,
So,
we'll see what happens there. Hopefully, they give us something next week. Early in advance for next week, we're going to do them. Actually, never mind. Justin's not going to be here next week, so we may hold off on that. So never mind. Stay tuned for that plug later on as we get into next episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. We appreciate you guys, as always, hanging out with us during the summertime. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. I'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, Player FM, tune in. Anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
yep. And be sure to check us out on YouTube, Drive and Dish NBA podcast on YouTube.